Welcome to a story that might just touch your heart. A story that might change the way you look at your own life. If you think your life is full of pain, disappointment, or unfair struggles, then pause for a moment and listen, really listen, to the story of Prince Rardin. The year was 1871. In a small hospital in London, a baby was born unlike any other. He came into this world without arms and without legs. A rare condition had taken away the very limbs that most of us rely on for everything. Doctors stood in silence, unsure what to say. His mother wept, holding her fragile baby close, while the whispers around her said he wouldn't survive for long. But fate had written something different for that little boy. That fragile child, whom everyone thought would never live a full life, grew up to inspire millions around the world. That child was Prince Rardin. As a boy, Rardin faced life harder than any of us could imagine. He couldn't run, couldn't play, couldn't do what other children did. But there was something inside him, a spark that refused to die. Where others saw tragedy, he saw a challenge. Where others gave up, he said, "I'll find a way." People around him used to say, "It's impossible." And every time they said that, Rardin smiled and whispered to himself, "Then I'll be the one to make it possible." With time, he learned to live life in his own extraordinary way. He used his mouth, his chin, and his shoulders to do what most people did with hands. He learned to shave himself, to paint, to write, and even to dress on his own. Each task that seemed impossible became a symbol of his determination. He refused to be a man who people pitied. He wanted to be a man who people respected. And so, he worked harder, practiced longer, and believed stronger than anyone could imagine. Every time life tried to break him, he stood taller, not with his body, but with his unshakable spirit. Years passed. Prince Rardin joined the circus, a place where people with unusual bodies were often displayed for entertainment. But he turned that stage of pity into a stage of power. He didn't want people to feel sorry for him. He wanted them to see how powerful the human will can be. And then came 1932. A year that would etch his name into history forever. He appeared in a movie called Freaks. In that film, he performed a scene that the world still remembers. Without any help, Prince Rardin rolled a cigarette using only his mouth and chin. And then, he lit it himself. That moment wasn't just part of a movie. It was a message. A message that screamed louder than words. Nothing is impossible. Audiences around the world were left in awe. Some clapped. Some cried. Because what they saw wasn't just a man rolling a cigarette. They saw a man proving that willpower can defeat every limitation. Prince Rardin became an icon of strength. He started touring the world, telling his story, inspiring thousands who thought their lives were broken. There are moments in life that make us question everything. Our strength, our purpose, even our reason to keep going. But every once in a while, a story comes along that reminds us what true power really is. This is the story of Prince Rardin. A man who was born with nothing, yet lived like a king. It was the year 1871. In a small corner of London, a child entered the world with no arms and no legs. The doctors looked at him with pity and whispered that he would not last long. But destiny smiled quietly, because this child's life was never meant to be ordinary. As he grew, life threw every challenge at him. He couldn't walk, couldn't hold, couldn't play. But while his body was still, his spirit refused to stop moving. Rardin learned to do everything in his own way. Writing with his mouth, painting with his chin, even shaving and dressing himself without help. Each small victory was proof that courage is stronger than condition. People called him helpless. He called himself limitless. In time, he joined a traveling circus, a place where the world came to stare at people like him. But Rardin didn't perform for sympathy. He performed to show the world what the human will can do. Then came the moment that made history. In 1932, on a movie set, Prince Rardeen rolled a cigarette using only his mouth and chin, and lit it all on his own. The crowd fell silent. That scene wasn't just a trick. It was a declaration. A message that said, "You don't need perfect limbs to live a perfect life." After the fame came peace. Rardeen married a woman who saw beyond his body. Together they built a home filled with laughter, children, and hope. He lived with pride, not pain. He smiled not because life was easy, but because he had learned to make it beautiful. Prince Rardeen's life reminds us all. Strength doesn't come from the body. It rises from the soul. It's not about what you lack, but about how deeply you believe in yourself. So when life feels heavy, and you think you've reached your limit, remember him. The man who couldn't walk, yet stood taller than the world. The man who couldn't hold, yet carried courage greater than anyone. Because in the end, it's not the body that defines your strength. It's the fire within your heart that never gives up.